we'd like to just open it up at this time just to the audience. Here for the ABCs that we were just thinking, if you are interested in dual language education in general, we have information here for what dual language is or what it is not, maybe what the differences are between dual language programs or other immersion programs.
I'm not clear on the terminology when they say one-way language immersion, two-way TWBI. I don't know what all of that.
That is, maybe, would somebody like to start in on that? And then I can put up a graphic that would kind of discuss kind of some of the differences of that. Sure, Olga, why don't you go?
I do this in some of my classes at Olympia. I think what I found is that there's a lot of labels, and sometimes we're talking about the same thing, and sometimes we're not. So even this morning, as presenters were talking about immersion, I was getting confused because I was thinking, are we talking two-way or are we talking one-way? So when we think of one-way immersion, when we speak to one-way immersion, it's looking at one language. Think of the students that are in the program. That's how helps me clarify it, is by thinking of what is the population that you're serving. So when you have a full class, let's say, of English-only students who are learning a second language, then we look at that as a one-way language immersion program. So like when they give the examples, like in Canada, the students learning French. When you start moving into programs where you have now two populations, so you have your English-only population, and you have a language minority population. So in many of our English-Spanish programs, you have the English-only students who have no Spanish background whatsoever, and then you have the fluent Spanish speakers. Then we're looking at two-way. You have the representation of both language groups in the classroom. Then aside from that, we then use terminology like dual language. Sometimes when people say dual language, they mean either one of those, because you're talking about teaching two languages. So that's where it starts to get confusing. When I say immersion, I say immersion all the time, but I mean two-way immersion when I say immersion. So I think that's where sometimes the terminology gets a little bit confusing. But strictly speaking, that's the main difference between those two models. Then you have the transitional programs that you were talking about earlier, which are programs. There's early exit, late exit, maintenance bilingual, developmental bilingual. All those programs are looking at, and typically it's Latino English learners, because they're mostly Spanish-English programs. That's when you're looking at language minority students coming in using their primary language to transition into English. And then we have the heritage language programs, which again is kind of a one-way type of program when you're looking at students who come from a certain cultural background and you're trying to recapture the language of that cultural group in the heritage language programs. I don't know if I've covered all of them, but that's...
There's the umbrella behind you.
Oh, there we go.
So you just kind of see that dual language is an umbrella term. So you will hear lots of different terminologies for that. And then what we're really looking at here is something like this. So if anybody has any questions about that. Anna, are you going through a dual language program? Now, what kind of immersion program are you?
Well, we're dual language. We had a really tough time when we started. We had a tough time getting the representation that we wanted to get. Well, we started with our German program, and we did have a few, but very few, because people travel still from LA and other parts to come to be part of our program. But we had very few native speakers of German at the time. We started with that one, and then the following year we added Spanish and Italian. With Italian, again, it was just like 2 or 3, but the strangest thing was that many of our Spanish, because we offered multiple languages in one school, many of our Spanish families who we thought we were going to be able to have that 50-50 representation within the classroom, many of our Spanish families said, we already know Spanish, so we want to work on our third language. So they signed up for German or Italian. So we have some, even though I try to explain to them, that the academic language in the classroom is way different than the language that is spoken at home, they still said, well, you know, but we can teach them that. We can teach them to read and write. And so we do have many students in our German program and some in our Italian program that are of Spanish background. So we don't have yet that 50-50. As the years progress, like this year in our kindergarten class, we were able to get 1/3 Spanish speakers in the class, or a little over 1/3 of the classes have Spanish speakers. So we're hoping, and now with the magnet program, we're a lottery, and so we have reserved space so that we can get that 50% ratio that we want with the native speakers in the class. But it is harder with the additional languages like German and Italian.
I'm going to actually sit myself here so that if there are any slides there, go through. Does anybody have any other questions? We also are able to talk a little bit about the research, the benefits of dual language programs. We're also have some information for you on there. And also some of the, if we wanted to, I'm going to go to, a slide here behind you'll see, and I'm sure we'll be able to speak to. These were some of those programs as well that Michelle was asking about, all the different types of programs. And has the audience seen this slide before? Yes? Everybody, right? Yes? Yes, probably. Okay, so what kinds of other, as you can see, this is kind of why we promote that top line, the two-way bilingual education program model, because we do show after the longitudinal analysis that students who start off in the schools not really speaking English do, by staying in a dual language program, have high levels of achievement in English at that time. So this is one thing that I think is one of the most compelling reasons. Now, if you could for me, I know that if there's anything about a program mystique, and I think that was mentioned earlier in the earlier panel about why is it that there's this mystique to this program, I'm wondering if anybody on the panel would speak more to this difference that surrounds the dual language program or the immersion program in general, with all the experience we've got. Alice, would you want to speak to that?
The mystique of I think more of it is it's the not understanding, like what Dr. Fortune was saying was, when you don't understand what is going on, and sometimes they feel that it's something very different and they're not a part of that group. There is a lot of myth on, when we started the program, we had a lot of parents that were non-Japanese speaking, and they were very scared to put their students in our program because they were very frightened of what happens if their English doesn't, become proficient.